I didn't know that saying yes to that party would slowly unravel the version of love I had been protecting for 4 years, and my name is Madeline Harper. And for most of my 20s, Ethan Calloway was my certainty. We met in college during a late-night study session neither of us was actually prepared for. He had a quiet steadiness about him back then, an attentiveness that made me feel like the only person in the room. Loving Ethan felt natural, like something that didn't require effort. We built routines, inside jokes, Sunday coffee traditions. For a long time, I believed routine meant stability. But somewhere along the way, stability turned into distance that didn't happen all at once. It never does. It was small things. Ethan answering texts with half smiles he wouldn't explain, turning his phone face down on the table, working later and later without frustration, as if staying away required no sacrifice. Our conversations grew thinner, stretched over long pauses where warmth used to live. When I asked if everything was okay, he would kiss my forehead and say, "You're overthinking, Maddie." And because I loved him, I let that be enough. Loving someone can make you patient in ways that slowly erase you. Lucas Whitmore had known Ethan longer than I had. They were childhood friends, opposites in personality, but loyal in a way that made me admire their bond. Where Ethan was reserved, Lucas was effortlessly charismatic. He spoke easily, laughed loudly, and carried a confidence that didn't feel forced. When Lucas entered a room, people noticed. When Ethan entered a room, I noticed. The first time I sensed something shifting wasn't because of Ethan. It was because of Lucas that we were at dinner one Friday night, the three of us squeezed into a corner booth of a crowded restaurant. Ethan spent most of the evening replying to emails between bites, apologizing without looking up. I had grown used to it, or at least I told myself I had. Lucas, however, kept watching me. "You okay, Madeline?" he asked casually, but his eyes lingered. I smiled automatically. Of course. He didn't look convinced. That unsettled me more than Ethan's distraction ever had. Lucas noticed what I was working so hard to hide that a week later, Lucas called Ethan while I was sitting beside him on the couch. I could hear his voice through the speaker, animated and enthusiastic. "There's a beach house party next weekend," Lucas said. "Small group. Just friends. You both should come." Ethan hesitated. I watched the crease form between his brows. "I don't know. Work's been insane." "You always say that," Lucas replied. "One night won't kill you." I surprised myself by speaking up. "It might be nice to get away." Ethan looked at me, then really looked at me, as if trying to measure how much I needed this. After a moment, he nodded. "Fine. We'll go." I told myself the trip would fix something. That time away from our apartment, and his laptop would remind us who we used to be. I ignored the quiet voice asking why love suddenly needed repairing. The night of the party, the beach air was cool and heavy with salt. Music drifted from the house in soft pulses, blending with distant waves. Strings of warm lights lined the deck, casting everything in a flattering glow. For a moment, it felt cinematic, like the beginning of something instead of the unraveling of it. Inside, people laughed easily. Drinks clinked. Conversations overlapped. Ethan disappeared almost immediately into a group near the kitchen. His posture relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. He looked lighter there, animated, alive. I stood near the sliding doors with a plastic cup in my hand, watching him from a distance. I told myself not to overthink it. He deserved to have fun. Still, an unfamiliar loneliness crept in, subtle but sharp. "Shouldn't you be in the middle of that chaos?" Lucas' voice came from beside me. I hadn't noticed him approach. "I'm fine," I said, though the words felt thin. Lucas leaned against the railing, following my gaze toward Ethan. He hasn't even looked over once. The observation stung because it was true. He's catching up with friends. Lucas studied me for a moment, not with pity, but with something closer to concern. "You shouldn't look this alone when you're standing next to the person you love." The sentence settled heavily between us. I felt exposed, as if he had peeled back something I'd been trying to keep intact. "It's just been busy lately," I said quietly. "That's all." Lucas didn't argue. He didn't criticize Ethan. He simply stayed there, present in a way that made my chest tighten. We talked about simple things at first, The drive down, mutual friends, harmless memories from college. But even in casual conversation, he listened with full attention. When I spoke, he didn't interrupt. When I laughed, he watched like it mattered. Across the deck, Ethan threw his head back in laughter at something someone else said. The sound carried over the music, familiar yet distant. Do you ever feel, Lucas began carefully, like you're trying harder than the other person? I swallowed. The ocean roared softly behind us, as if urging honesty. Relationships go through phases. I answered, though I wasn't sure who I was convincing. Lucas nodded slowly. They do, but both people still have to show up. For a second, I felt defensive. Ethan wasn't cruel. He wasn't unfaithful. At least, I didn't believe he was. He was just distracted, overwhelmed, tired. I had built entire explanations to protect him from my doubts. Yet standing there beside Lucas, I realized how long it had been since someone had asked how I was doing and actually waited for the answer. Inside the house, the music shifted louder. Someone cheered. Ethan moved further into the crowd, his back turned toward the deck. He didn't glance outside. Lucas rested his forearms on the railing. You deserve to be chosen, Madeline. Not just assumed. The word chosen echoed in my mind. Had Ethan stopped choosing me? Or had I simply stopped asking to be chosen? For the first time in months, I allowed myself to feel the weight of that question. I love him, I said, more to myself than to Lucas. I know, Lucas replied gently. That's why it matters. The simplicity of his understanding unsettled me more than any argument could have. I wasn't looking for attention. I wasn't looking for escape. I just wanted to feel seen again by the man I had given years of my life to a gust of wind brush my hair across my face. Lucas reached out instinctively, then paused, letting his hand fall back to his side. The restraint was subtle but deliberate, respectful. Inside, Ethan lifted his phone to his ear and stepped toward the hallway. Disappearing from view did I watch him go, an uneasy sensation forming in my chest. He hadn't mentioned expecting a call. He hadn't mentioned needing privacy. Are you okay? Lucas asked quietly. I hesitated, staring at the empty doorway Ethan had vanished through. For the first time, I wasn't sure. For a few seconds, I stayed on the deck, pretending the uneasy feeling in my chest would dissolve on its own. The music inside swelled, then dipped, laughter rising and falling like waves. Ethan had disappeared down the hallway with his phone pressed to his ear, his expression sharpened with urgency. He hadn't looked at me before walking away. I'm going to grab some water, I told Lucas. Needing an excuse to move, he nodded, studying my face as if he understood more than I was willing to admit. I'll be here. Inside, the air felt heavier. The hallway lights were dimmer than the rest of the house, casting long shadows along the walls. I told myself I wasn't following Ethan. I was just looking for the kitchen. But my steps slowed as I heard his voice at the end of the corridor. He wasn't on the phone anymore. He was standing close to a woman I didn't recognize, her back against the wall, her smile quiet and familiar. She looked comfortable near him. Too comfortable. I just need more time, Ethan said, running a hand through his hair. His tone wasn't irritated or casual. It was intimate. I can't just walk away overnight. The woman tilted her head. You said that last month. My breath caught before I could stop it. It's complicated, Ethan replied. Madeline and we've been together for years. It's not something you end without thinking. Hearing my name in that context felt like stepping into cold water. I pressed myself against the wall, invisible in the shadows. And what are you thinking? She asked softly. Ethan exhaled. That I don't feel the same anymore. The sentence was quiet, calm, final. There was no anger in his voice. No guilt, just certainty that in that moment, something inside me shifted, not explosively, but decisively. All the nights I had blamed work, stress, exhaustion. All the times I had questioned my own sensitivity. They rearranged themselves into clarity. He hadn't been distant because he was overwhelmed. He had been distant because he was already leaving. The woman touched his arm lightly. I'm not asking you to choose tonight, she said. I just need to know I'm not waiting for nothing. You're not, Ethan answered. The hallway seemed to tilt. I didn't wait for more. I didn't need to. The truth had already landed. I stepped back quietly before either of them could see me and returned to the deck. The ocean air hit my face like a sob I refused to release. My hands were trembling, but my mind felt strangely steady. Lucas straightened when he saw me. Madeline, I must have looked different because his expression shifted immediately. He stepped closer but didn't touch me. What happened? I swallowed, forcing the words into shape. I heard him. Lucas didn't ask what I meant. He didn't need details. His jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. Are you sure? I nodded. He said he doesn't feel the same anymore. Saying it aloud made it real, but it didn't shatter me the way I expected. Instead, it clarified something I had been avoiding for months. I wasn't losing him tonight. I had been losing him slowly, piece by piece, while trying to convince myself love was enough to hold him in place. I kept thinking if I tried harder, I said, my voice barely steady. If I was more patient, more understanding. Lucas shook his head gently. You shouldn't have to compete for loyalty. I let out a soft, broken laugh. I wasn't even competing. I didn't know there was a race. The music inside swelled again, oblivious to the quiet collapse happening on the deck. Through the window, I could see Ethan re-enter the living room alone, scanning the crowd as if nothing significant had just been said. He hadn't noticed I was gone, that a tear slipped down before I could stop it. I wiped it away quickly, annoyed at myself. I feel stupid, I admitted. Like everyone else saw this before I did. Lucas's voice softened. Trusting someone doesn't make you stupid. It makes you brave. The kindness in his tone made my chest ache more than Ethan's confession had. I suddenly understood how vulnerable loneliness can make you. It pushes you toward whoever offers warmth. For a brief second, I imagined leaning into Lucas, letting his steadiness hold me together. The thought startled me, not because it was wrong, but because it would be easy, and I didn't want easy. I can't stay here, I said finally. Lucas nodded. Do you want me to come with you? The offer wasn't possessive. It was protective. That distinction mattered. I need to talk to him, I replied. My voice surprised me with its calmness. Inside, Ethan spotted me almost immediately. His expression shifted, something like relief, maybe even habit. He walked toward me as if nothing had changed. Hey, he said, brushing my arm lightly. Where'd you go? I heard you, I said. The words were simple. They didn't need decoration. His body went still. Heard what? The hallway, I answered. You don't feel the same anymore. Silence settled between us, heavier than any argument we had ever had. For a moment, he looked like he might deny it. Then his shoulders sagged. Maddie, he began carefully. I didn't mean for you to find out like that. Find out, as if the method of discovery mattered more than the truth itself. Were you ever going to tell me? I asked. I was trying to figure things out, he said. I didn't want to hurt you. I studied his face, searching for the boy I had fallen in love with. He was still there, but distant, as if viewed through thick glass. You were already hurting me, I replied. You just didn't want to feel guilty about it. He ran a hand through his hair again, frustration creeping in. It's not that simple. It is for me, I said quietly. You stopped choosing us. The words didn't shake. They didn't accuse. They simply existed. For the first time all night, Ethan didn't have a response that I stepped back, creating space that felt long overdue. I won't compete for someone who's halfway out the door, I continued. If you don't feel the same, then don't stay because it's comfortable. A flicker of regret crossed his face, but it wasn't enough to rebuild what had already fractured. I never wanted to be the bad guy, he murmured. Then you should have been honest sooner. The music behind us felt almost inappropriate now, too loud for something so quiet and final. I realized I wasn't angry. I was clear. I'm leaving, I said. He nodded slowly, as if accepting something inevitable. I'm sorry, Madeline. I believed he was. But apology and love are not the same. When I stepped back onto the deck, Lucas looked up immediately. He didn't ask what happened. He read it in my posture. It's over, I told him. The words felt heavier than I expected, but they didn't break me. Lucas walked beside me toward the steps leading down to the sand. The party lights flickered behind us, distant and irrelevant. As we reached the edge of the beach, I paused. The ocean stretched endlessly ahead, dark but steady. You were right, I said quietly. About what? Lucas asked. About being chosen. He didn't smile. He didn't move closer. He simply stood there, giving me room to feel the weight of my own decision. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for Ethan to look back at me, that I was looking forward instead.